Hey guys, how's it going? Derek Craig here with oilfieldbasics.com. Today we're going to be talking about AFEs. So what they are, what different parts they have, and what's their purpose. So what purpose do they serve in our industry? So we're going to dive right in, but I'm going to make a quick mention as to why this video is a little different. I want to record this in the studio and basically misplaced an SD card. It's about this big, but is very important to the operation. So that's not available to me right now, so we're going to be doing the presentation this way. Still going to bring you the same content that we would have in the studio. So I'll bring up the presentation so you can see it. And again, we're talking about AFEs. So again, before we dive right in, we're going to be talking about a lot of different language that relates back to our industry. And if you don't have that strong foundation of what it means to drill and complete a well, then check out our courses at oilfieldbasics.com. It's going to be a great resource for you. And again, follow us on social media as well, so you can always keep up to date with what we're posting and what new content we're putting out there for you to watch. So diving right in to the purpose of an AFE. So an AFE helps to basically list out the anticipated costs of a project, so the capital costs of a project. And again, these costs are going to actually be estimated, and a lot of time will actually go into creating the AFEs, but this is a necessary part that needs to be done before a project can commence. You need to actually take into account what you think every little bit of this project is going to cost, what's going to cost to develop, and we're going to look at an example of an AFE in just a minute. I have an example there on the side. We're going to look at it full screen here in just a second. There it is for you to look at. And again, this is used for economic modeling. So if you're trying to figure out what project to actually commence, if you have 5 different projects, 5 different wells you can drill, one's a 10,000-foot lateral versus a 5,000-foot lateral, you need to know the difference in costs that is going to cost you, right? And you need to be able to use those numbers to model the project and see what's going to be the most economical, what's going to be the best for your company to develop. And an AFE is going to be key to that process. So the personnel that has the expertise in that area, so the drilling engineer, for example, was going to put together the drilling portion of that AFE. So we're going to have all the estimated costs for the drilling portion of that well, and then it'll go on and you'll get information from other engineers. And after a time, you have a pretty standard template that you can use, but that kind of information is what we're going to be including in an AFE. And again, it's another thing that you can actually do and you can actually reflect on later. So once the project has been completed, you actually reflect on it and see if you were within budget or not. And now we're going to talk about the divisions of it. And so in the upstream oil and gas industry, you're going to see them divided into drilling, completions, and sometimes facilities. So that's going to be the main divisions there, infrastructure, just within the upstream itself. So if you're in midstream or downstream, your divisions are going to look a little different, but they're basically just categorized into the main categories that you're going to see to complete that project. And another thing that's a little bit weird, you don't really see this too many places, they're going to be commonly divided into tangible and intangible costs. So what that means is tangibles is something that you actually are basically purchasing a physical product. So you might consider tanks on location, production tanks, production equipment. That's all tangible. You're buying a product to stay on location or to use. Intangible is more like services rendered. So you're going to be paying the drilling contractor. So the HMP or Patterson, whoever it is that's actually drilling the well, that's going to be an intangible cost. You're paying for their labor and also the drilling fluid, all that kind of stuff. It's intangible. You're not really keeping it around right after this project is developed. And so now I'm going to switch over and show you guys this sample AFE up a little closer. So right off the top, you're going to have header data up here. So here's the company, here's where the location of the well is, whatever the depth typically, spud date, so any type of critical information that your company deems that they want to know right off the bat. And then you might have some information on the well itself. So how many casing strings are you running? Again, the depth, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be on here as well. And this is going to be under the cost. And these are all going to look different. So every single company is going to look different, most likely. Most of them are going to look different. If not, maybe they stole from another company. But they're all going to be laid out differently. This is a very different format from every other one I've seen, but it shows the general breakdown. So right off they're actually keeping drilling and completions costs in one group, but you have different codes, and so every subcategory, and even sometimes even every single line item, you'll have a particular code. And that code can be entered into a company's cost system so they can actually monitor and see what they're actually paying for that product versus what they said they were, what they budgeted. And it's all accounting. It's a way for them to actually keep track of the costs. But this is just kind of their code to do it. But you're going to talk, so here, intangible drilling and completions costs. So intangible, just explain what that was. So site preparation and maintenance, location, roads, pits, you're going to have the cost, and then if it's, multiple units, rig rental, and then down here, rig rental, 22 days, obviously you're going to multiply them out. But this is just all the way that you capture the costs, right? And you have all these different line items, and it's pretty detailed. Some companies actually have a pretty short and compressed AFE, and some spell out to huge lengths. So it just depends on the company itself. But you can see all these different examples, and then down here you have total intangible costs, so it sums all that up, and then you start looking at the tangible drilling and completions costs. So again, all of these things are just separated out depending on the company, depending on the format of the AFE, but they're typically always separated out. And so tangible drilling and completions costs, casing, that's a tangible product. Some companies don't always, it depends how companies classify. This drilling and completions is grouped together, but in some companies, if drilling completions was separated, you might have conductor casing. Some companies might think it's drilling. Some companies might list it in completions, or actually production casing would be a better example of that. Conductor casing should always be drilling. But every company's going to act and behave and record these things a little bit differently. But this is a general idea. Tangible drilling completions costs, wellhead equipment, production equipment, and then they're going to sum all that up, and then they're typically going to have a summarized breakdown at the bottom of the AFE, talking about, here's a total drilling tangibles or intangible drilling, tangible completions, intangible completions. Here they keep it together. It looks like you've got total cost drilling, completions, and then right here you're going to have the grand total. So that's the project amount that's going to be approved. And in some AFEs, they might list their working interest share. So if this is a company that actually sent this to you to actually participate in a project and you're only going to have 20% working interest, well, then it's just going to be the total of this AFE times your working interest of 20%, and that's going to be what you'll actually have in on this project. And so speaking of working interest, that also brings me to another purpose of an AFE. So an AFE, again, used for your own internal approval of a project and economic modeling, but it's also what would be sent to partners of a project. So if you're wanting to drill a $10 million well and it's on 20% of another company's land, and you want to come in and joint venture with them or have an agreement with them, their working interest might be the 20%. And you're going to be able to send them this AFE as well, so they know when they're signing on to this project with you what their costs are going to be, and they can do their own economic modeling and try to figure out if they want to participate or not, or however that agreement works out. But that is another purpose of an AFE. And also, again, all this rolls up into capital budgeting and how much a company expects to spend in a year to develop a well or develop their wells. It all depends. But this is all used for the economic and the finance portion of a company. So this is a great way to keep record, and it's a critical thing that all of us, if you're an engineering student like me, need to be familiar with this, because engineers definitely have a large hand in AFEs and creation of AFEs and approval of them, even some of the economic modeling sometimes. But this is all something we're going to be familiar with. And if you're out in the field, or if this isn't actually, you don't really deal with the AFEs, note that these exist and that these float around and really help rule a project and help companies decide whether or not they want to proceed with the project. So a lot of quick information thrown to you, but thanks again for watching. And in another video, I'm going to cover CapEx and OpEx, so the difference between capital expenditures and OpEx or operating costs. So we'll talk about all that and more. So again, subscribe and check out our site for more. So I look forward to seeing you next one. Thanks.